What would you do if somebody started choking in front of you? Or you came across a really bad car accident? Or somebody had a heart attack? Do you know what you would do in these emergency situations? Some of the life-saving operations are very intricate, and they require a lot of confidence and planning. Being prepared and creating a plan is the most important step in the life-saving process. Now let me paint a picture for you guys. You're at your high school graduation. Your grandfather passes out. What do? First thing you do in any emergency situation is call 911. Calling 911 is the most important step, because any of the life-saving maneuvers that I will be talking about cannot fix anybody. You cannot save anybody. You're only prolonging the time that life-saving personnel can come in to save them for you. So calling 911 is the first step. Next, you're going to want to diagnose the situation. Things like, are they breathing? You have to check their pulse. Now, if you don't know how to check their pulse, it's about 2 inches below the wrist. And you would set a timer on your phone for about 10 seconds, actually 10 seconds exactly, and count the number of pulses, multiply it by 6, and that's their heart rate. Check for signs of allergic reaction. But the first thing I'm going to go over is CPR. Now, there's a lot of common misconceptions about CPR that are put on by pop culture. If you've ever seen those hospital shows and they're like, you know what I mean? They're not doing it right. First of all, one misconception is that you need to do the rescue breaths, which is breathing into somebody's mouth. Nowadays, they say that's not very important. It's that chest compressions are the most important part of the CPR process. Now, chest compressions must be at the rate of the song Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. If you know that one, it's like, staying alive. And each compression must go down 2 inches into the chest. That's a lot of stuff. 3 inches into the chest. Now, that's a little bit scary, pushing down 3 inches into somebody's chest, because a lot of people, but they describe it as sounding like crushing a bag of saltines, because it will break ribs. That's just par for the course during CPR, it's breaking ribs. Now, the next situation that you may have to diagnose is when they have an irregular heartbeat. When somebody's heart, instead of beating boom, 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 it's going like boom, 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 something like that. Now, in that situation, you would want to get a defibrillator. Now, there is another popular misconception about a defibrillator. A defibrillator does not start a heart. If the heart is completely stopped, a defibrillator will do nothing. A defibrillator actually stops your heart. And now, a healthy person, if you defibrillate them, their heart will automatically restart because they're healthy. But if they're unhealthy and you defibrillate them and their heart stops, then you must begin chest compressions. Now, proper procedure with a defibrillator, you have 2 paddles. Generally, they come as stickers, and you would put them at 2 locations crossing over the heart. Because if you put them like over here, it won't do anything. It'll just shock you. Now, let's say you came across somebody who is choking. Proper procedure is called the Heimlich maneuver. Now, to do the Heimlich maneuver, you would wrap your arms around the person and place them below the belly button. And you would do a up and in kind of motion, up and in. Now, it's important to recognize when to do the Heimlich maneuver, because if somebody is coughing, or if they're speaking, or if they're even breathing at all, you don't need to do the Heimlich maneuver, because that means they're still getting air into their lungs, and the Heimlich maneuver probably won't do anything. Now, if somebody has been choking for long enough that they cannot support themselves standing up anymore, and they have fallen over, then the Heimlich maneuver is not effective. At that point, you must do chest compressions, and that's because the Heimlich maneuver is only to get the air in your lungs to eject whatever is causing the blockage. And if you have passed out because you have no air, there's nothing to eject the blockage. So allergic reactions. Allergic reactions is another emergency situation that you need to take into account. It's generally you can just give them a dose of Benadryl, which is a medication that generally people have for allergic reactions. But it is extremely important when people get into anaphylaxis, and that's when you have such an extreme allergic reaction that your lungs and your throat begin swelling and you cannot breathe anymore. And that's when you have to administer an EpiPen shot. Now, anybody who has anaphylaxis and knows about it has been told by their medical provider to carry EpiPens wherever they go. So if somebody is going through anaphylaxis, they generally have an EpiPen with them, and you will shoot them into their leg or their butt. It's pretty easy. Now, the last thing I want to go over is treating for shock. Now, after you have helped them well enough that the medical people can come, you need to treat them for shock. And what shock is when your brain is having so much anxiety about what's going on, maybe you're cut off your arm, that it starts to shut down parts of your heart will beat too slow, and it's like mostly mental. So what you would do is you would elevate the legs, try to calm them down, make them feel better. I don't know how you do that, but you would have to cover them with a blanket if it's cold. If it's hot, probably don't do that. But with using all this information and understanding how to properly use the different medical procedures and equipment, you'll be able to more effectively create a plan to save people in the future. And understanding how to do this and when to do this is what makes the difference between life and death. Thank you, everybody.
Woo!
And robots.
Thank you, Sam.
Robots.